Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hippie Sh, the podcast where we talk about self-development, spirituality, and lots of fun life stuff like that. My name is Bryce, and today is episode 6 of the Hippie Sh podcast. Are you excited? I'm excited. Get excited. Let's get excited. In today's episode, I am going to talk about the very concept of success and failure. You don't believe that these two things exist separately from each other, and I believe that there's a very important understanding that we need to have in order to really, have a good, solid foundation in our lives. And since that's my personal theme of the year, this has been coming up in my own personal explorations pretty frequently. If I manage to remember, I'm also going to address the idea of accountability. I have issues. I take issues with the idea of accountability. And I've kind of been addressing this at work this week. And so kind of finding a better alternative to trying to hold yourself accountable or trying to hold other people accountable to your goals, to their goals. I don't see a lot of benefit in how we conduct accountability practices in our lives, and in the lives of others. So let's talk about that. So to get started, I wanted to address the idea of how to guarantee success. And there's a very simple, not easy, but simple way to guarantee your success in any of your endeavors, anything that you choose, anything that you set out to do. And the way to guarantee success is to release the idea that failure exists in the first place. Yeah, it's that easy. It's that simple. Just let go of the idea of failure, and you'll always be successful. No, we tend to believe that success and failure are these kind of disparate poles, these two sides, these two, modes where we can either be successful or we can fail. Those are our two options. And like most everything in life, I don't really believe that that's true. I don't believe in the idea of failure as the opposite of success. I believe that these are possibly two sides of the same coin, possibly different ends of a spectrum, and that there are, a million possibilities, an infinite number of ways that we can be successful, even if we are not successfully hitting the goal that we set for ourselves. And to, illustrate this concept a little bit, in last week's episode, I talked a lot about weight loss, and this idea that, to successfully hit your goal, what you really need to do is shift into the mental space where you are willing to accept fully where you are, to willfully embrace the idea of where you would like to be, and then to also become okay with every step along the way. And in laying this out in this way, I kind of worry that I've left a little bit of a gap where the mind can sneak in and say, well, then that means that I'm failing today. Full success is the finish line, and then there's little bits of success along the way that I can experience. And that's kind of a better way to think about it. That's kind of getting somewhere, but I don't really want you to fall into that trap where we believe that success and failure are binary. And so to illustrate this a little bit, let's say that you are a scientist and you go through some experience. You lose some family member very early on in life, and so you decide that your life's purpose is to find the cure for cancer. Okay? And so you spend every day of your life, you spend the full context of your career searching for a cure for cancer. And at various points, let's say that you are, because you're just an absolutely brilliant scientist and because you are so consistent in your work, because you're so driven, you find lots of cures for other things. You find the cure for, I don't know, tuberculosis, typhoid, consumption, um, the vapors, right? So you find, cures for other things. Maybe you find a cure for HIV. And my question for you, thinking of this other person, thinking of this third party, this hypothetical person, they set out very early on in life, they set their goal to find the cure for cancer. They did not. They spent their career on the search for that, and instead they found other things, but they did not hit their goal. Did that person fail? I'm just waiting for an answer anytime somebody wants to chime in, right? So, if we're looking at this objectively from a binary, then yes, that person failed. That person's career was in fact just a failure. It was one long failure because they never hit the goal that they set for themselves. They achieved all sorts of other things that they didn't want, that they didn't set out to do. They had lots of, really meaningful contributions to the world that they weren't seeking. And at no point did they reach what they had set out to do. At no point did they accomplish what they had set out to do. So yeah, they failed. And that person has every right to see themselves as having failed. In fact, that person would have every right then to see themselves as a failure and take that identity on and beat themselves up for it. That's completely just. It's not going to feel very good, but they have every right to do so. But when we look at this from our perspective, that person did great, right? Like, they did wonderful things. And it can be so easy to see this in other people. I had a moment at work yesterday. I was talking to one of my clients, and, he was talking about we got onto the subject of, some small goals that he had set for himself, some like daily practices that he's been working on to build up his life, which I believe are really helpful and really meaningful, and that they're going to bring him a lot of really wonderful results. But one of the goals that he had set for himself that day was to do 35 push-ups in the morning, and instead he did 26. And when he said this, he immediately went into so I failed at that. And I'm like, did you really do 26 push-ups just so that you could beat yourself up for not doing enough? Because, if you wanted to beat yourself up for not doing enough, you could have just sat on your couch and not done the push-ups. Did you really put in that work just to call yourself, names, just to feel like you didn't succeed? Because that's a lot of effort to put in just to, tear yourself down. A lot of unnecessary effort just to tear yourself down. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I definitely, there's definitely room and space in my life for, some improvement there with myself as well. And I was listening to another podcast, and the guest that they had on the podcast was talking about her very similar experience in a yoga class, in a hot yoga class, where, she's getting down on herself for not being able to contort herself into this, awkward pose. And if you don't know what awkward pose is, just Google it. It's very appropriately named. But she couldn't contort her body into this particular asana, and she started to, witness her mind wandering and witness her mind chatter going to this dark space. And she had that same moment of like, did I really drive all the way here and pay this money and come and like sit in this like hot ass room and do these poses just so I could like feel shitty about myself? Because I could have done that at home. And that really shifted, how she then handled yoga from then on. She took that experience and, kind of transmuted that energy and brought herself into a much better space. And she, is now a yoga teacher years later. And I'm not by any means saying that we need to get to there, my client with his push-ups, I don't think it's, a reasonable expectation that he, hear what I had to say and then just never shit talk himself again. And, now he'll do push-ups joyfully and, in 20 years he'll be a fitness coach or, a personal trainer or something. No, that's not the point there. It's just that we have this concept of success and we see failure as the opposite of success. And I don't believe that to be true. And to illustrate this point even further, let's say that, you set a goal of finding the cure for cancer at the beginning of your career. You do all of this research, you get right to the point where you've, done all of this foundational research. You've essentially identified the box, you've identified the key, you've stuck the key into the lock. This is such a weird example. You stuck the key into the lock, and there's just one last bit of information, of research that needs to be completed to turn the key and open the box, and there's the cure, right? And let's say that you've got all of this research and you've contributed it all. It's been peer reviewed. So it's, you're basically ready to go. You're ready to deliver this cure for cancer to the world. And on the way, you get hit by a bus and you die. Did you fail? Again, I'm just waiting for an answer. Did you fail? Because let's say that you did find the cure and you just haven't, delivered the cure to, I don't know, Pfizer or whatever, whoever's going to produce it. You're on the way to go deliver all of your research so that they can start to mass produce this, and you get hit by a bus and you die. Did you fail? At what point do we set the mark? You found the cure, which I guess is what you set out to do, but did you really set out just to find the cure, or did you set out to cure cancer? Or let's say that you set out to cure cancer and you do all the research and you find the cure and it's starting to be mass produced, but it hasn't been delivered to the whole world yet before you yourself, pass. Did you fail? Because the goal wasn't yet completed, because the whole world hadn't yet been cured, but you have set it into motion. And so that's a concept that I believe is really worth exploring. And there's also a further concept that sometimes what we believe that we want is not truly going to bring us the happiness that we are ultimately seeking. So I could be wrong. This may not be true for everybody, but I've noticed in my life, my real goal is to be happy. That's kind of it. And that's, very Pretty Hurts by Beyonce. But truly, my goal in life is to enjoy it. If I hit that goal, if I were just happy and content, and I could experience that for the rest of my days, regardless of the circumstances, that's a pretty solid life, no matter what that looks like. And that, I believe, is the idea of surrender. And I believe that's also the idea of having built a solid foundation. So, as I discussed last week very briefly, my goal for this year is to build a solid foundation. And that, for me, has looked like two different things at the same time. Two different shifts in my life that I am working to I guess integrate. So I'm kind of working from two ends of the spectrum. So I want a solid foundation in life, and for me, action wise, that has meant I'm, going to drink more water. I'm going to return to daily exercise. I'm going to, reestablish my meditation practice. I've been journaling, working on sobriety. By the way, at the time of this recording, 26 days sober. What? I'm time blocking now. So every single morning when I wake up, I know what my daily routine is going to look like. I'm waking up consistently at the same time. I start work at the same time. I go walk at the same time. I stop working for the day at the same time, and switch over into much more unstructured, like hobby fulfilling, I'm just gonna find what feels really good in this moment kind of time. And those are all really wonderful, but I have to keep in mind that all of those activities, while they feel good, which is a really good space to be in, I believe, I chose all of these activities because I wanted to feel good, and I am basing, my daily structure off of what research has shown contributes to overall happiness. Things like meditation, things like daily exercise, especially outdoor exercise, getting, sunshine, getting that vitamin D, in the middle of the winter. So there's nothing wrong with having goals for yourself and little daily practices that you are using to try and push yourself further along the journey. But what I have to keep in mind, the idea that I need to sit with throughout this process, is that all of those activities are coming out of my ego. All of those activities are solutions to the problem of unhappiness, of dissatisfaction. And I'm very fortunate because I don't sense a lot of dissatisfaction. I don't experience a lot of dissatisfaction or unhappiness in my life anymore. I've really worked on establishing a healthy relationship with myself that brings me a lot of joy, and that it gives me a lot of space to kind of consider life to be one giant experience, one giant exploration of potential, rather than putting a lot of pressure on myself to act or look or be a certain way. And so that's really powerful. But at the same time, realistically, all of these activities that I'm incorporating, yes, they come, yes, they're backed by research. Yes, they are, well known to be healthy activities. Yes, they are well known to be nourishing activities. However, they are still the solutions of my ego to the problem of unhappiness. And so perhaps, while these activities are really nourishing and wonderful, perhaps they are not truly meant for me. Maybe they are not truly what I'm meant to do. Part of my routine, part of my time block is to work. And, outside of the podcast and, working towards coaching and creating YouTube content, I run another business. And so my default mode of behavior is just kind of, okay, during the times that I'm working, if I have work to do on my other business that takes priority, But if I don't have work to do, then I'm not just going to, leave myself unstructured time. Then I'm going to create content for the podcast. I'm going to work on, the companion book to the 21 Days to Heal Through a Breakup video series. I'm going to create, I'm going to plan if I need to, I'm going to get organized if I need to, or, work on something that actually is like related to my business, like doing accounting, which, if you run your own business, don't do your own accounting. It's just punishment. But I do these things because I enjoy very much the sense of being productive. I enjoy getting things done, and I enjoy, recording the podcast. I feel like I'm contributing something to somebody somewhere in the world by doing so. But I have to also balance that, reconcile that with the fact that I may not actually know what's right for me. Maybe the Hippie Shit podcast isn't what I'm meant to be doing. And maybe, running my other business is not what I'm meant to be doing. Maybe that's not actually a way for me to fulfill, the highest good. Maybe that's not a way for my soul to be truly aligned with what my intention was when I came to this earth. And that's okay. I don't need to know that. If I'm meant to do something else, then that something else will present itself to me. I will start to feel the nudge in that direction. I will start to feel that call in that direction. And so in the meantime, it's a matter of choosing, okay, what am I going to do to fill my days with as many, nourishing activities that feel as good as I can reach for in this moment. And in doing that, I'm really kind of removing the attachment to the outcome. I'm not working on the podcast because I want to hit 1 million subscribers. I'm recording, this episode of the podcast because right now it is 9:46, and, my time block says that I will be working until 11:30 when I, then go to the park for my walk. And, the phone hasn't rang today, so I don't have, other business activities to take care of at the moment. I don't have a hard goal set of where I would like the podcast to go. And I don't have, a specific timeline that I want things to unfold in. This is just kind of a thing that I'm doing because it feels good right now and because I enjoy it. And so, walking at the park is the same way. I go walk at the park because it feels good. It feels good to walk out. It feels good to express, my physical state, the very real material state of my body. It feels good to express that in such a way that I can, I guess, illustrate for myself what my current physical state is. And I'll, push myself when I do workouts, not because I, necessarily believe that progressive overload is necessary. It is if you want to, achieve a certain thing. I just don't care about that particular end goal. But I'll push myself because I want to, enjoy the experience of getting 1% better every day. I want to add a few additional steps to my routine every day, or try to walk a little bit quicker, maintain a little bit quicker of a pace, because it's like, okay, where am I at now? Where has my body gotten to now? What is it capable of now in this moment? And how do I experience to, as close to the fullest of the extent of what it's capable of? How do I get as close as I can to the edge of what is doable for me in this moment? And in doing so, yes, I'll gradually build strength, I'll gradually build endurance, but that's not necessarily the goal either. It's just, how do I experience what is right now? How do I experience what I'm capable of now in this in this moment? How do I enjoy that and really, I guess, kind of, enjoy the juice of the efforts that I've put in so far during my consistent exercise? And that's a mindset that is so important, I believe, throughout all of our lives, where it's not about, there really is no destination. There is no getting it right. There is no failure, and that also means there is no success. Success is how we experience the current moment. Success is just a mental state. Success is not an objective reality. It's not a box to check off of a to-do list. Success is a mental, emotional, and embodied experience of the particular set of circumstances that you find yourself in a given moment. And it's completely possible to feel successful any time that you want to. All that you have to do is set a goal that's very readily achievable, in this moment. If I want to feel successful, I can set a goal right now of, I'm going to walk to the kitchen and go get a glass of water and drink it. And I can do that, right? That's very simple to do. And there you go. I'm successful, right? In the moment, I am successful. And then we do the thing where we let our minds, run wild with that, where it's like, well, you could do more than that. Or like, okay, yeah, like I feel successful right now. And like, now I don't. Cause like, okay, what's next? What am I going to do now? Like, what did that actually bring me long term? And those are the spaces where we really get, I guess, so out of alignment with ourselves, with our happiness, that it's like, why did you even bother to do it in the first place then? Right? And so that's my point about having these goals that are informed by ego. Almost all of our goals are informed by ego. Your soul doesn't really want for anything. Your soul's already pretty satisfied. When you're in alignment with your soul, you're already pretty satisfied with life. All that you kind of want to do is stay in the flow of life and see where it goes and experience the journey and all of that. When you have a goal, you are it's by default going to come from your ego, because it's, trying to achieve something that's different from the current state of being that you're in. Soul alignment is, I'm good with where I am, and I'm going to experience the richness of exactly where I am, versus the ego saying, okay, that's fine, but I, need this, and I need this, and I want this, and I want to do this, and right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with, your ego informing your behavior. If you don't have that, you do tend to stagnate. And so it is important for our human experience to want things. There's nothing wrong in desire. It's just very helpful to maintain your understanding that, yes, I do want for things. Yes, I am working towards something. But I'm also choosing to recognize that that's probably not going to bring me long-term, sustainable, permanent happiness. That can only be found from within. That can only be found from doing the inner work. That can only be found from truly aligning. But I can enrich my experience of this earth. I can quiet down my ego by checking certain boxes, by improving my situation. I can deal with less mind chatter surrounding how negatively I perceive myself, either by removing the things that I see as negative or by working on lessening the volume of that voice in my mind. And I believe that the best way to integrate this into your life is to attack things from both ends. And so, yes, set goals for yourself, but also make it a point to notice your mind chatter. Notice when you're taking away your own happiness. Notice when you're taking away your own sense of success. notice when you have the choice to either celebrate the idea that you just did 26 push-ups, which is great. It's a really powerful step towards your general health, your strength. Or when you can tear yourself down for only doing 26 push-ups instead of 35. And it is a conscious choice which of those you're going to do. And one of those feels better and one of those doesn't. And there's nothing wrong with either choice. There's nothing wrong with either direction. But I would encourage you to choose, to reach for the thoughts that feel better, because often the people that are choosing to reach for the thoughts that feel better, overall, not only do we then experience more happiness with less effort, but also we have a much higher likelihood of hitting our goals because we're not sitting there trying to overcome the tricks of the mind. A lot of success is really about noticing how often the mind tricks you. It's noticing how often the struggle of things is purely mental. It is purely, us wanting to fall back into our old patterns. It is us, feeling like we're unworthy of reaching the goal that we've set for ourselves, and then self-sabotaging, of having all of this mind chatter come up that really drains our motivation, that makes us feel like crap, and that takes away so much joy from the present experience, from the present moment, that we get so drained, and we're, any form of moving forward has to come from the space of just pure willpower and just driving yourself towards this unforeseeable ending. And that is exhausting. Whereas you can surrender the idea of failure existing in the first place. You can start to see success along the way. You can start to see that success is an experience I can have in this moment, regardless of where I am. And it drives you towards what feels good. And it, so many of us operate from the space of like, well, if I don't beat myself up, then I won't be motivated. And that is so false. It is so completely false. And maybe this is not true for everybody, but in my experience, the kinder I am to myself, the more grace I show myself, and the more grace I'm able to show to others, the more motivated I am, the less issue I have with motivation. I don't need motivation anymore. I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be doing the work. I'm excited for the day. I'm excited for what I get to experience and what I get to do. And I'm excited to find all of this joy in the present moment. And that's leading me into the concept of accountability and why I really disagree with the concept of accountability. Now, I will start by saying that, having an accountability partner it's not inherently a bad thing. I'm just going to contradict myself immediately. Now, I believe that we are able to get a lot of benefit out of having somebody who can act as a sounding board. We are social creatures. We are wired for connection. If you have a gym buddy that you go to the gym with every day, that you can, have this mutual experience together of improving your physical health, that's fucking wonderful. By all means, please, 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 please surround yourself with people that are working on the same goals as you. That is so wonderful. It is so brilliant. And when you slip up, when you are not making progress towards the goals that you've set for yourself, it is so wonderful to have somebody that you can check in with and say, like, this is what happened. This is how I'm feeling. This is, here are my thoughts. Here's where I'm at, right? And having that support can be really wonderful and nurturing. Where I think that accountability really goes wrong for people is when I hear somebody say, okay, let's back up. Let's back up to the same conversation that I was having with one of my clients yesterday. And actually, this is a conversation between several of my clients, who work on a team with each other. And they were talking about, we need to hold each other accountable. And my question was, well, why? Why do you see the need for accountability? And way too often, when people talk about needing to be held accountable, their response, the reason why they need that, is because it's like, well, if I'm not accountable, then I won't do the work. If I'm not accountable, then I won't do it. I won't follow through. And so in seeking accountability, what you're really doing is hoping that being held accountable by other people is going to solve a much deeper issue. And that much deeper issue is that you don't fucking want to do what you're setting out to do. Am I wrong? Right? Like, what I'm hearing when someone says, well, I need to be held accountable to my goals or else I won't hit them, is that I don't actually want to achieve these goals. I don't actually want to do the work that it takes to meet my goals. I don't want to do what I've set out to do. I don't want to accomplish what I've set out to accomplish, or I don't want to put in the work and take the necessary steps to get there. And so you're seeking accountability to solve that problem. And an accountability partner can't solve that problem for you. You're throwing the issue of your lack of motivation at somebody else and saying, here, you deal with this because I don't want to, or because I can't. I don't believe that I'm capable of dealing with this on my own. And that's putting a lot of power into other people's hands. And so if you've set goals for yourself, if you've set out in this particular direction and your thought is, I need an accountability buddy to, keep me on track with this, okay, I would question whether you're meant to be doing what you're doing, because it kind of sounds like you're not feeling particularly confident in your ability to get there. It sounds like maybe this isn't actually what you truly want. And, the idea of a sponsor is a huge part of 12-step programs, right? If you're familiar at all with, things like CODA or Al-Anon or, the original, AA or SLA or any of those, the sponsorship is really built into the program, and sponsorship serves two people. The sponsorship serves both the sponsor and the sponsee. It helps the newcomer, the person who's still really struggling with addiction, who is beginning their journey. It helps to be able to check in with somebody else who has a more informed perspective than you on what's going on, and I don't know if I'm slipping back into this pattern or if it is safe for me to do this, right? You join AA, you start to get sober, and then you get invited to, a friend's birthday party, and you're like, I know that there's going to be alcohol there. And so, you call your sponsor and say, I don't know what to do. Do I go? Knowing that I'll be tempted so that I can, enjoy time with my friend and celebrate his birthday with him. Do I, just stay home? Do I send a card? Do I say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to, make it to your party because I've got, other commitments. I've got other things going on. But hey, can I, buy you a coffee tomorrow? And being able to check in with somebody before you do something and kind of getting someone else's perspective can be really powerful. And then for the sponsor, likewise, it's an act of service. It's helping you to stay committed to your own sobriety so that you can continue to help other people. And filling your time with service, you're leaving yourself less time to, slip, basically. Not to get, too into 12-step programs, but I, can see where accountability partners can kind of serve the same purpose, where it's it's so wonderful to have a sounding board. It's so wonderful to have somebody who is, doing the same thing that you're doing, and who can maybe offer you perspective when you feel like you're straying and getting off task, or, I just need to talk about, why I didn't hit my goal, and this is why I believe that I didn't hit my goal, and, this is what I want to try now to see if maybe that helps. But I don't believe that, I guess my main issue is that a lot of people really seek accountability partners because they don't feel like they can successfully achieve their goals without one, without, the sense of embarrassment and failing. And that tells me, okay, your goal is probably not coming from a sincere place. There's something within you that knows that this is not truly what you want. It's not truly meant for you. It's not, truly aligned with your deeper desires. And that's a much bigger problem. That's something that an accountability partner can't truly solve. And if it takes, the threat of a sense of shame for you to motivate yourself to do something, that's not going to go away. That is something that you really need to address at a much deeper level, at a root level. That is an indication that there's something much deeper going on within you. And you really do need to work on addressing that head on, and working on releasing, whatever it is that comes from. Because chances are, if you set out to, make $1 million this year or whatever, and, the thought in your head is, I need an accountability partner, someone who's going to give me hell, basically, if I fail to reach that. That is an indication that on some level you probably don't believe that you're really worthy or capable of reaching that goal. It is an indication of a deeper sense of you feeling like you don't deserve it, that it's not meant for you, that you can't do it, that you won't be able to achieve it. And if that is the case, if there are parts of you that are resistant to achieving that goal, an accountability partner is not going to remove that roadblock. And there are deeper things going on within your mind that need to be addressed because they are limiting you. And maybe you will achieve it. It is possible. It is entirely possible that you can achieve things despite your limiting beliefs. Stranger things have happened. But I would hazard a guess that you're setting yourself up for a lot of misery along the way, and you're really trying to overcome your own subconscious through sheer force of, conscious will. And there are much easier ways to achieve things by, removing or by healing those parts of yourself, by reconciling with those parts of yourself, sitting with them, figuring out what they have to offer you, and then saying, okay, thank you for your feedback. This is what I'm going to choose instead, by staying in the driver's seat. And in doing so, you also have a lot more enjoyment along the way. There's a lot fewer 20-hour work days along the way. There's a lot fewer fights with your spouse because you're stressed out. There are, a lot less, losing hair and losing sleep in the process. If you can get to the point where you are enjoying the journey for what it is, and where you're not worried about, okay, I'm going to fail, And then I'm going to have to, explain that to somebody else. I need somebody to hold me accountable, or I can't, reach my goals. I can't motivate myself. Address the deeper issue there. I don't believe that an accountability partner is the solution to that issue. And again, it's completely possible to still be successful no matter what mind space you're in. You're just really setting yourself up for a lot more struggle in the process. And you are honestly limiting your potential in doing so. Maybe you'll still hit your goals wherever you are in your mind space, but think of how much more you could do if you weren't actively fighting against yourself along the way, And so that's my issue with accountability. Just summed up into 5 minutes. Okay. I'm going to leave this episode here. As always, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you got something out of it. Take what resonates. I say this periodically, but it's always a good reminder. Take what part of this resonates with you, what is meant for you, and, run with it and leave the rest. It's not meant for you. You weren't meant to hear it, at least not right now in this moment. As always, I love you all. If you have anything that you would like for me to talk about, let me know. You can always reach out via email, hippieshitshow@gmail.com. Check out the YouTube channel. Leave a comment. Yeah. And by the way, for all of you out there that are listening on Spotify, I'm curious to know what you actually typed in to Spotify to find this podcast. It's kind of a mystery to me. I keep getting viewers and I'm like, how are y'all finding me? So if you're, one of those and you're still here listening to this, let me know. I'm just super curious. All right. I will talk to you all next week. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. I think this episode is actually going live on Friday, so I have a great rest of your work week and then a really fantastic weekend. Fantastic weekend.